On the day after Christmas, in the year 1900, a ship approached a lonely lighthouse on a rock in the North Atlantic and found it dark and silent. 3 men lived on that island, tending the light. When the relief keeper climbed the stairs and opened the door, the fire was cold, the clock had stopped, and a chair lay toppled on the floor. Of the 3 keepers there was no sign. There never would be. This is the true story of the Flannan Isles lighthouse and the 3 men who walked out one winter afternoon and vanished from the face of the earth. The Flannan Isles lie far out in the Atlantic, off the western edge of the Outer Hebrides, about 20 miles from the coast of Lewis. 7 small islands of bare rock and grass, battered by the sea with no people on them at all. The old Hebrideans called them the 7 Hunters, and they feared the place. Shepherds would land to graze their sheep, but no one would stay the night, for the islands were said to be haunted, watched over by spirits, and by the ruin of an ancient chapel on the largest island, Eilean Mor. In 1899, on the highest point of that island, the Northern Lighthouse Board built a lighthouse designed by the great engineer David Stevenson. It was a hard and lonely posting. The keepers lived at a shore station on Lewis with their families and took turns out on the rock, 3 men at a time, relieved every fortnight, hauling their supplies up 150 feet of cliff and 160 steps of stair. In December 1900, the 3 men on the light were James Duckett, the principal keeper, Thomas Marshall, his assistant, and Donald MacArthur, an occasional keeper standing in for a colleague who had fallen sick. Just before midnight, on the 15th of December, a steamer called the Archter passed the islands on her way to port, and her crew noticed something wrong. The Flannan light, which should have been sweeping the dark, was out. The captain meant to report it, but the message was delayed, and for 11 days no one realized anything was amiss. The relief boat was due, but a run of savage weather kept it pinned in harbour. Not until Boxing Day did the tender Hesperus finally beat her way out to the island. As she came in, the crew knew at once that something was wrong. No flag flew from the flagpole. No supply boxes had been left ready on the landing. No keepers stood waiting to greet them. Captain Harvey sounded the ship's horn and fired a flare into the grey sky, and nothing answered but the sea. The relief keeper, Joseph Moore, was rowed ashore and climbed alone up the long stair to the lighthouse. He found the gate shut and the great door closed. Inside, the beds were unmade, the clock on the kitchen wall had stopped, and the ashes in the grate were long cold. The only living thing in the whole place was a single canary, alive in its cage. Of Duckett, Marshall and MacArthur, there was no trace at all. The men who searched the island found the lamp cleaned and filled, ready to be lit, and the last work of the 15th of December neatly done. In the entrance passage, 2 sets of oilskins and sea boots were gone, but a 3rd set still hung on its peg, as though one of the 3 had run out into the weather without stopping to dress for it. And on the west side of the island, at the landing, they found the reason. A storm had struck the place with unimaginable force. A wooden supply box, fixed to the rock more than 100 feet above the sea, had been smashed to splinters and its contents flung across the ground. Iron railings were bent flat. A railway track had been torn from its concrete bed. Turf had been ripped clean off the cliff top, and a boulder weighing more than a ton had simply been moved. The superintendent, Robert Muirhead, a man who had known and hired all 3 keepers, came out to investigate. His conclusion was sober and probably right. 2 of the men, he believed, had gone down to the west landing in the storm to secure the gear the sea was tearing apart. Marshall had once been fined for losing equipment in bad weather and would have been anxious not to lose more. While they worked at the edge, an enormous wave had risen up the face of the rock, far higher than any man would expect, and swept them both away. The 3rd keeper, seeing them gone too long, had run out to help without even his coat, and the sea had taken him too. It was an accident, the report said, a tragedy of wind and water. No bodies were ever found. But an accident is a quiet ending, and the world wanted a stranger one. In the years that followed, the story grew. People spoke of a logbook found in the tower, its entries describing a storm worse than any in 20 years. One keeper fallen silent, another, a great tough man, weeping like a child, all three of them praying. And a final line, calm and chilling, that the storm had passed and God was over all. It was a haunting detail. It was also entirely invented, added long afterwards to darken the tale. No such entries were ever written. Others blamed a sea serpent, or a great bird that carried the men off, or foreign spies, or a ghost ship, the phantom of the 7 hunters, come at last for the living. And the old fear of the island, the one the shepherds had always known, settled over the whole affair like a fog. The likeliest truth is the simplest and the saddest. 3 men, a winter storm, and a wave that came from nowhere on a rock in the middle of the sea, with no one to see it and no one left to tell. But the light still turns out there on Eilean Mor, automatic now and empty. And more than a century later, we still do not truly know what happened on the Flannan Isles the night the light went out.